we look at Jacob and we think we know his story. We think we know what he's like. And we talked about this a bit last night. We think we know him well, and we've been taught a certain way about him. And that, sometimes it's necessary to try to challenge what we've always been taught, isn't it? I mean, that's why we're here. We're here because at some point or another, the Lord really led us and showed us something and had us questioning some of the things that we've always done and the way we've always behaved and believed. So, I was going to look at a couple of words and get started with this. This is Job chapter 1. I should turn that. Well, it says, there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. Now that man was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. So is that a good word? Is that a positive description? He's blameless. That means, what does that mean to say that he's blameless? He's righteous. He's mature. Does that mean he's perfect?
No.
No. But he's having a conversation with the accuser, right? The accuser is the one who wants to come and make accusations. So to be blameless means that the accuser doesn't have something to declare against you at a particular moment. It says, the Lord said to Satan, did you notice my servant Job? There is no one like him on earth, a blameless and an upright man who fears God and spurns evil. So this is the whole irony of this whole situation, is that God is the one who brings Job up, not Satan. God does. He has him considered. But he's blameless. He is upright. And in that blamelessness, in that uprightness, there's some of those, what descriptions come with it? What descriptions come with it? To be blameless, if you're going to be blameless, then you have to have these two characteristics. You fear God and you spurn evil. If you don't fear God and you don't spurn evil, can you be blameless? No. So if that description is there for you, then these two characteristics are going to be a part of it. That word blameless is a simple, short word. It's tam. It means, like you talked about, Gary, it's perfect, complete. It says one who lacks nothing in physical strength, beauty, is those kinds of things, but it's sound or wholesome, completely morally innocent, having integrity, one who is morally and ethically pure, an ordinary, quiet sort of person. Which one of those doesn't fit with everything else that you're reading? There's one of those lines that doesn't fit with the rest. Which one is it? The ordinary and quiet one, right? That doesn't seem to fit the way it describes all the rest of them. And this definition of this word is only used in one context, and one context only. You want to take a guess where that is? No, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Spoken to Jacob.
So here's another one. This is Psalm 37. It says, notice the man of integrity and watch the upright, for the man of shalom, the man of peace, has a future. Okay? Proverbs 29 says, bloodthirsty people hate a man of integrity and seek the soul of the upright. Okay, these are all in that same family. This is to be complete is the verb form of it. Tamam, to be complete or finished, to be complete, sound, unimpaired, upright, ethically, to deal in integrity and act uprightly. That is the foundation of this word tam, to be blameless. It's even used about of Abraham in Genesis 17. When Abram was 99 years old, and Adonai appeared to Abram, and he said to him, I am El Shaddai. Continually walk before me, and you will be blameless. Walk before me and be blameless. Right? This this tamim. Walk. And are we not called to do that as well? To walk before him and be blameless. That's something that we are called to be. So this word there, blameless, means free from accusation, to be morally upright, to be all of these things, to deal and walk in integrity, to act uprightly, and all of that. Tamayim it's an adjective to complete, sound, wholesome, unimpaired, innocent. If you're noticing a pattern here, right? All this word and its family are all related to what is complete and entirely in accord with truth and fact. Okay? So 91 times it's blameless, blamelessly, complete, intact, upright. You see all those different variations. So it's a very positive word. It's positive because it describes someone, the kind of character that God would like to see in His people. And so then we get to this description of Jacob. It says, when the boys grew up, Esau became a man knowledgeable in hunting. This is Genesis 25, an outdoorsman, while Jacob was a mild man remaining in the tents. Okay? When some translations might say quiet, plain, peaceful, even-tempered. Those are the various things. Now, how does that sound to you? To say he was a mild man or a quiet man, is that positive? Is that negative? Is that neutral?
Oh, that's very positive.
It's positive to say you're plain?
Well, you're peaceful, even-tempered.
Okay, but I mean, does it suggest, is it a very strong sounding word?
No.
Not in English, no. Because if you want to guess what that word is, it's that one. It's exactly the same word that has been used in all these other times. It's the same family, same thing, same one that's talked about in terms of Abram, of walking before him and being blameless. And in every other context, they don't want to use that word, that he's ordinary, that he's plain. They don't use that in every other context. The only context they use it in is Jacob. Now, why do you think that is?
Show the contrast between him and Esau.
Well, why do you think they would not choose to use blameless in the context of Jacob? Why would they not use morally upright in terms of talking about Jacob?
Because they painted him as a bad person.
Because we know the whole story, right? We think we know the whole story. We think we know what kind of person Jacob is. And the way we tell the story is that, Jacob, his name doesn't just mean heel grabber, it means deceiver or trickster or something else like that. And there's no way that the scriptures should use a word like blameless to describe somebody like that. I mean, that's like looking at some of our politicians. I mean, give me a name of somebody who's well known for being a liar or somebody who twists and distorts the truth.
Eric Holder.
What? Y'all are giving me all names that I don't know now.
Eric Holder.
Eric Holder, like he was the Attorney General last time, okay?
Yeah, he's
Hillary Clinton.
Some say Hillary, some would say Trump now because a lot of people don't like him. But, we look at these politicians and they know how to take and twist and distort. We talked about, there's President Obama. You could look at all sorts of Bill Clinton, all sorts of different people. And would you look at them and say, that guy, yeah, he's blameless. He tells the truth. He's morally and ethically upright.
You mean you can keep your own doctrine?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, we would not use those kind of words about some of these people that are out there because we know them too well to say, no, that I would never use that description of that guy. That's kind of how we treat it here in translating this passage with the scriptures. We think we know Jacob so well that when the scriptures use a word like blameless, it's like, well, it can't mean that. We've got to find a different translation for that, something that's not quite as strong for that. Of course, where do we get that interpretation of Jacob? Where's the primary place?
Esau.
We primarily get that from Esau.
An angry
We believe Esau.
Because of the upright standing.
Mhm.
Yes.
Because, yes, Esau is definitely someone whose word we should take for gospel truth.
But Isaac said he came to be deceitful.
He did. But there's also something in that moment
Yes.
that's important. But we believe Esau. Esau said, is this why he is named Jacob? Or isn't he rightly named Jacob, is how some of the translations will say. Is this why? Since he has tricked me twice already, my birthright he has taken. Look, now he has taken my blessing. And then he said, haven't you saved one for me? So this is all in the Genesis 25 and 27, those areas like that. We believe Esau's assessment of the situation. Yes.
Okay, his mother was really the one.
We'll get there.
Okay, well, I really.
Remember, I'm trying to also set up the stage for people who probably never heard this presented before. Some of y'all are familiar with this, and we talked about it last night and such.
We're getting to the truth.
But
Still class one.
my Sunday school class that I'm teaching tomorrow probably will have never heard any of this.
Exactly.
So I'm trying to set the foundation
Very carefully.
of the expectations of things. We expect the story to go a certain way, and I'm trying to show them that it doesn't go the way you think. This is not going to work out the way you think. Yes?
Haven't they always called him a supplanter?
Supplanter, yes. That's another one of the we say that's a translation of his name, and it's not.
No. It's heel growth.
That's an application of what we think his life is,
Right.
not what his name means. Yeah. So anyway, why do we take Esau's word as truth?
That's a good question.
Why do we listen to him? Yes.
Because he appears to be the underdog.
He's the victim.
He's the victim.
We think of him
Yeah.
as the victim right here.
Oh, poor Esau.
Oh yeah. He got robbed. What is it, Gabriel?
Right.
I'll tell you later.
Okay. But what kind of person is he?
No regard
Yeah.
for God.
This is how he's described in Hebrews chapter 12. He says, see to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and by it many become defiled. That no one is sexually immoral or unholy like Esau, who sold his birthright for a single meal. Okay? So a root of bitterness, he's in that context of that larger sentence of idea of being a root of bitterness. Root of bitterness describes Esau, doesn't it?
Mhm.
This will come up later.
And rebellion.
Because in part he's defiling and attacking the plan and purpose of God. Because when you have siblings, when you have twins, and when you have conflict within a family, who oftentimes feels the brunt of it? When you have brothers or sisters that are in conflict, the parents do, yeah. But who usually gets it first before mom and dad ever find out?
One of the twins.
The other sibling. The one sibling acts out and does something, then the other one might go crying to the mom and dad, right? But it usually gets taken out on the other sibling when there is that kind of conflict. The parents oftentimes aren't aware of half of the stuff that goes on, right? I know that I can say that with truth. I have an older brother. A lot of things happened before and after mom found out, that they didn't ever hear about. Yes?
Esau represents the flesh nature.
Yes, he does.
And the flesh nature of us all, at one time or another, defile and attack the plan and purpose of God.
Yes.
With our doubts and our unbelief.
Yes. Even the plan and purpose of God in our own heart.
In our own heart. And this is why God said, Jacob I have loved, and Esau I have hated.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is your take on that?
Well, we'll get there.
Okay.
He talks about him being sexually immoral. Okay, and do y'all recognize that's the Greek word there? Does that look like familiar to anything that we still use today?
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
It's pornography, essentially, is what that comes from. To be unholy or godless, profane and unhallowed, it's bebelos, which, and this may not be accurate at all, but when I read that, it made me think of Babylon.
Yeah.
Just the way it sounds, or way it's pronounced and such like that. And he is willing to sell his birthright. He's willing to sell the provision that is his, or that should be his. It should be precious to him. It should be something important, and he's willing to sell it. And we'll get into that a little bit later as well. But that's how Hebrews talks about him. That's not right. Said should not be that. But let's look over in chapter 25. Verse 19 says, "Now these are the genealogies of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham fathered Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took him for himself Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean from Padan Aram, the sister of Laban of the Aramean, to be his wife. Isaac prayed to Adonai on behalf of his wife because she was barren. And Adonai answered his plea, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant, but the children struggled with one another inside her, and she said, 'If it's like this, why is it happening to me?' So she went to inquire of Adonai, and Adonai said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, 2 peoples from your body will be separated, 1 people will be stronger than the other people, but the older will serve the younger. And when her time came to give birth, indeed there were twins in her womb. Now the first came out reddish all over him, all of him was like a fur coat, and they named him Esau. And afterward his brother came out with his hand holding on to Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob or Yaakov. Isaac was 60 years old when he fathered them." So he's been married for how long? 20 years. Okay. "When the boys grew up, Esau became a man knowledgeable in hunting and outdoorsman, while Jacob was a mild man remaining in the tents." Okay. So that word should be a hunter, a skilled hunter. So that's a mistake on my part. It's Thaid. It means hunting, it's a game, it's provision, it's food, it's the one who goes out. It's from this verb, which means to hunt or pursue or to chase. Okay? It also can say to lie alongside or lie in wait, by implication to catch, to entrap. Is this concept that goes along with that. He lies alongside, he lies in wait for the one that he is pursuing, the one that he is hunting to come by, so he can do what with them? Just kind of wave at him and say hello?
Is this a get hunter?
Huh?
Is this a get hunter?
No. But this is a description of character more than it is anything else. Because it's also the same word that is used of a guy earlier in the scriptures named Nimrod. Cush fathered Nimrod. He was the first on earth to be a mighty man. He was a mighty hunter, there's that word there, before the Lord. Therefore it's said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. The beginning of his kingdom was what?
Babel.
He started Babel, Erech, Akkad, or Arcadia, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. From that land he went into Assyria and built Nineveh. So he is responsible for starting several of the major kingdoms. And are these kingdoms known for their high quality and ethics and morality? Babylon or Assyria?
Or Nineveh.
Was known for vicious.
They were vicious. Okay? Who do you think they took their cue from?
The mighty man.
Nimrod, who was this one who's the Said, the hunter, the one who wanted to secure his position of power. That's the kind of person Nimrod was, and it's the exact same word that is used of Esau. And so a reader, especially a Hebraic reader, would read this and associate Esau's character with the same character that you saw with Nimrod. Does that make sense? Esau's character and lifestyle and description is likened to Nimrod. Yes, Gabriel?
Isn't that word mighty man the word for tyrant?
I was looking for that. It was a great man, Ish.
Okay, so just Ish, just
Yeah.
a man.
Yeah, was the description of him. Now, I've seen it used and talked about in those terms, but the tyrant concept of it really comes more, I think, out of the hunter part of it, and then the fact that he goes and he conquers all of this territory and sets up his kingdom. He's really the first one that starts doing that.
He's a hunter of souls, so
Yeah, a hunter of souls. But he is oppressive, he's dictatorial, he is domineering in his personality. That's the kind of person Nimrod was, and that's really the same kind of person that Esau was. And again, who would experience the brunt of that personality
Jacob.
growing up? Jacob. In fact, Jacob experienced a lot of it before they were even born.
Yeah. They
Okay.
say that's why he had all of his skill.
Esau would be one of those that would be a dangerous brother to have.
Yep.
He would probably, we would look at him today and say he's like got some sociopathic type of tendencies to him, right? He's the ones that you see, they always talk about those warning signs about the kids when they start killing and torturing animals and things when they're young.
Yes.
There's like, okay, that's a sign of something's wrong, right? That's the kind of situation, that's the kind of personality that Esau seems like he has.
Well, now Isaac must have had a personality that, and I know you're going to get into that too, I guess.
Yeah, because that's the next verse.
That was the first dysfunctional family we read out one.
No, he's not the first. But Isaac loved Esau because he had a taste for wild game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Okay, so there's obviously, what is it about Esau that Isaac loves, and why is it that Isaac does not see it?
Didn't Isaac have to stay in the land? Esau got to go out and probably came home and told his dad about all of his adventures.
Mm-hmm. That's
Plus
part
the-
of it.
Plus the wild game.
Yeah, he always brings back something with him to show what he did. He did not stay home. He went out roaming around all over the place.
And they didn't have grocery stores, so a provider of food, I mean,
It's not like he wasn't bringing anything to help the family, right?
He was bringing home other things. Meaning he could feed the family, so maybe just,
But in a lot of ways, I think he looks at it like you said, Isaac wasn't allowed to go off. He never got to leave the land. He didn't get to go out on his own and have his own adventures as a younger man and such as that. And so it's he seems to be kind of like that man who, when he was young, he got injured playing sports and never really got to go on to college, and so now he's living kind of vicariously through his son, who's the sports star or whatever else like that, and he's really pushing, he's really trying to get him to do everything and be better than he ever was. So it's kind of like Isaac just admires Esau because he's doing all the things that he never got to do and wished he had. Does that make sense?
He wasn't just bringing home food though either.
But no, he wasn't just bringing home food. We'll get to that. But Esau could be dangerous with his personality. And Esau's first action is this idea of the struggling in the womb. It's a verb that really means to crush. and to oppress. That's the very first action. It says, the two nations are in your womb, and two peoples. They are, the children struggled with one another inside her, is how this one puts it. But there's a fight going on in there, and one is usually the aggressor, and the other one is usually defending, right? That's how most fights go. One starts it, the other one has to fight them off. Based on these personality traits, who do you think's starting it?
Esau.
Esau is, yes.
This proves that life begins at conception.
Yes, it does. Before birth, they have a personality. Before birth, they are, it's attributing behavior and intent to what's going on, because this is intent to crush and to oppress. He's wanting to exert his nature, his personality, even before they're born. Okay? It also means to crack into pieces, to break, or bruise, or discourage. And in fact, there's a usage of it in Judges chapter 9. A woman threw the upper portion of a millstone on Abimelech's head and fractured or crushed his skull. Okay, that's the same word. It exerts that same kind of force, that same kind of strength, with the intent of destroying or killing. Okay, this is some of where you've heard Bill Cloud talk about some of these aspects of the hand grasping his heel, kind of thing. This is where all of this comes from. That his holding on to his heel. Well, I might have it on here. He's wanting to crush the head of his brother Jacob.
Yeah.
That's essentially where it comes from.
From the curse of the garden.
And it's reversing that kind of idea. So it's like the enemy is trying to destroy the seed through whom the promise is going to come later.
Yes.
So you're saying that he had his hand on his heel so he wouldn't crush his head?
Yeah.
Basically, it's a defense. It's more of a defensive type of thing. He's trying to grasp it and restrain it from continually
You've got
hurting.
the soft
Yeah.
spot on the top of the baby's head.
Yeah.
That's
It
true.
wouldn't take much to
It
kill
would.
him.
It would. So
That's especially true on the way out. When they're side by side, they probably wouldn't get the.
Well, they're turning around in the.
They're jostling around and such, but especially on the way out, he would have a direct shot at that top of his head.
I've always been taught that he had his hand on the heel so he could be part of the firstborn. I mean, I was actually taught.
Well, that's the way that it's traditionally taught.
Yeah.
That Jacob, because we know his character is negative and he's the deceiver, he's the heel grabber, he's all of those things. Then we assert and say that the reason why he's grabbing his heel is for nefarious purposes too. We just assume that that's what's going on. And we read into it, we know the rest, we're like Paul Harvey, we know the rest of the story.
Yep.
And so we take the rest of the story and put it back at the beginning of the story, and so it colors everything else that we do when we read his character.
The Hebrew tells the story a lot clearer than the English.
Yes, it does.
But in that, we don't go back to the very beginning of the story.
No. But, so, coming to that, Jacob is not grasping so he can take from Esau. He's trying to restrain Esau's destructive nature so it just doesn't destroy him, but in later life, so it doesn't destroy everything else. I knew that was going to happen. I knew that was going to happen. But Jacob's nature is to try to prevent Esau from destroying everything.
So the descendants of Esau and the descendants of Cain, the descendants of Cush, are all mixed together today.
And they all have the same intent and the same purpose, which is to make war against
God's people.
the chosen people of God and the ones through whom the promise comes.
Yes.
So all these different people groups that are out there, whether they're mixed or not, they still have the same set of orders.
Same agenda.
Same agenda.
Yeah.
and we read though, Esau actually hated the life of his father Isaac.
Where did you get that?
We see that in chapter 25, verse 34, where he says Esau despised his birthright. Okay. Most of the time, did he despise it only after he sold it, or did he despise it before he sold it?
Four.
He really despised it before he sold it. Because if he loved it before, would he sell it? No.
And so cheaply.
And so cheaply.
He wouldn't have got as much.
He would, but and if he loved the life that he had with his father, and such as that, the life in the tents, the life as a shepherd, the life taking care of all of those herds, where would he be?
There. and
He'd be
not
home.
out in the-
He'd be staying home all the time, because man, I can't wait to have this. This is my identity. This is who I want to be. This is what I want to know, what I want to learn. But he's never home. He comes home every so often. He brings something good with him when he comes back to kind of show he wasn't completely wasting his time out there. But he leaves and goes off seeking adventure elsewhere. Yeah. So and that's why he is the skillful hunter. He's the knowledgeable hunter. He's the outdoorsman. He is hardly ever at home because he doesn't want to be there. He does not want the life of his father. He doesn't want that kind of life for himself.
He just wants the goodies.
He wants the benefits of it. So verse 29, this just says, Jacob cooked a stew, and when Esau came in from the field, he was exhausted. So he puts his whole life into his life out there. So Esau said to Jacob, please feed me some of that really red stuff because I'm exhausted. That's why he's also called Edom. So Jacob said, sell your birthright to me today. And Esau said, look, I'm about to... Really?
He's a mighty hunter.
Yeah, the mighty hunter. Yeah,
And the tradition is it was the day Abraham died.
right. He says, look, I'm about to die. Of whatever use is this to me, a birthright? What good is it to me? And Jacob said, make a pledge to me now. So he makes a pledge to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank. Then he got up and left. Left where?
Went on his way.
He went right back out. Out into the woods, out into the fields, away from the home. He came home, to get something to eat, to have mom do his laundry, and leave. That laundry discussion was really interesting last night, by the way. It was very insightful. I had not heard about that, Terry, from your experience. So that was a nice share.
Yeah, but if what the rabbis say that it was Abraham had died,
Right.
it
So
was his duty as a firstborn to be there and take care of the family, and he wasn't.
right. So that comes to this is that the idea that this lentil is the soup of mourning.
It still is.
And it still is, and that it was likely at Abraham's death, because Abraham has been alive all of this time until they were about how old?
15.
About 15 years old. Okay, and this will come up in a little bit, but so he would have come running in. Abraham would have died. They would have probably had how many days of mourning for somebody like him?
It's like at least 60, right?
Well,
At least 7.
Well, I think-
typically it's a 7. Nowadays it's like 7 days.
but back
For
then it
great
was
people it's like 30 days, 40 days, 30 days,
Yes.
maybe 60 days or more.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Jacob's was 70 days. Okay, so the culture has an extended period of mourning,
Yes.
There's
Okay.
phases of it.
and he is out there in the field, and it's like he's gone for the whole time. Essentially, is what it's like. They can't find him anywhere.
Well, it's
And-
no fun to mourn.
and-
He didn't want to be there.
And when he comes home, he sees them in this period of this state of mourning, and it's like he doesn't want to stick around to be told really what's going on. That spoils all my fun. And so he's right back out there. Don't put that responsibility on me, being the firstborn of the family and such as that. Don't put that on me. I'm going right back out where I was. Yes.
And if it is at the time of Abraham's death, and he's despising that birthright, who does that birthright come from?
Who does that birthright
It
really
comes
come from?
Abraham. So he's
Esau.
despising his grandfather.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's why Jacob
exactly.
wanted the birthright.
Yeah.
So,
Because he despised it.
because what good is that birthright to me? I don't care about any of that
Not
stuff.
until,
Not until he doesn't have it,
Right.
which is how we typically are. But so they're about 15 years old. Now, did Esau sell it willingly?
oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Was he cheated, deceived,
No.
anything?
He could have actually taken it because he was the stronger.
Yeah.
So.
Holly?
I was just, I heard Paquette say it, that it's probable that the reason that Jacob presented that to him at that point was because he cared about it, the family's heritage, the covenant, and he wanted to take that responsibility. He knew Esau did not, so he's saying,
Right.
I'm
He
gonna
is.
protect this, and, no, obviously it wasn't, so he could have said, forget it, I'm not selling that, but I'll give you something for it.
Yeah. He's seeing his nature in his character. See, this is how Esau characterizes. We've already looked at it. He has now tricked me twice already. Was he tricked?
No.
No.
No. He's taken his birthright. Did he take it? So you're saying, Jacob, your mild and meek, quiet little brother who stays at home, which is how we typically understand it. You mean he threw you on the ground, beat you up, and took it from you? No.
He doesn't think his father knows. That's why he thinks he can get away with it.
Right, exactly. He was still expecting to get it, I think,
I can
anyway.
tell you, Jacob wasn't
wanted to
alone
bring
around the
honor
fire.
to Abraham's name.
But, so this characterization of it, especially with the nature of the birthright, is completely false. Now here's the interesting thing. How long after the events, if he's 15 years old, or if it's at Abraham's death, if we take that as a marker, how old is he here when he says that?
We have to see how old.
I don't have an exact number, but he's in his 70s. Is he still holding a grudge?
Yes.
Is he still holding on to a root of bitterness? Yes, big time. He's had 60 plus years to stew on the stew that he switched out. I need to patent that, don't I? But so yeah, he's in his 70s now.
How old was Jacob then?
Well, they were twins.
I mean, Yitzhak.
At this point, well, Isaac would be
140?
100. Yeah, he'd be 120 because he's
140,
147 when he dies, right?
No, he's 180.
He's 180. That's right. Okay.
But he's 140 when this happens.
So he's about 140.
Oh, that's where you get him being that old, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a root of bitterness. He's been holding on to that, and he's lying to himself all of this time that my brother deceived me. My brother took it from me. My brother did all this stuff. He's been stewing on that all that time. Now the thing is Esau could play the part of a good son when he's home. When Daddy's around, he can be the good boy. Y'all know people like that? They're the biggest cut up. They're the biggest, like at work or something else like that. They're the laziest person on the planet. They're constantly doing it wrong, getting you into other kinds of stuff. But as soon as the boss shows up, they're at their job, and in fact,
Take credit.
they often take credit for the job that's been done.
He's not stupid.
He's not an idiot. You're right. He's not stupid. But he's that kind of person that knows how to turn it on around certain people.
But today days are a lot of people like that.
Well, there are. And we don't want to be a person like that either.
Kind of call them a deceiver and a trickster.
So, yeah, who's the deceiver and the trickster?
Yeah, exactly.
It's more Esau, because he has completely fooled Isaac.
He's projecting himself onto his son.
Yes.
Actually, he's a manipulator, that's witchcraft.
Yeah.
Got it right out of
That is
my mouth.
idolatry.
So he doesn't stay at home. He roams around. Where would he go, when he's out roaming around? What kind of things do you think he would get into if he's truly immoral and godless?
Women.
Pagan religions, all sorts of women, yeah, he's the guy running down to Vegas when he can, and
Merrymaking.
yeah. After all, he not only shows up with game from time to time when he does show up, he also shows up with 2 women.
Against.
What are you laughing at back there?
Never mind.
So,
That was against his teaching, was not to marry foreigners.
yes,
And he
that's
did-
chapter 26.
Yeah.
He says, when Esau was 40 years old, so this is not an impulsive kid. He knows exactly what he's doing. He says, when Esau was 40 years old, he took as wife Judith, the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. But they caused a what? Bitterness of spirit for Isaac and Rebekah. Okay, so the root of bitterness that he has already, he brings home with him and brings women who are more than happy to live with that and be a part of that.
And that he knows his mom and dad would be very upset.
Yeah. Did he
No respect for his.
ask for permission? Did he say, Dad, who would you recommend me getting married to? Did he seek their counsel at all?
Even
Nope.
Samson said, arrange this for me.
Yeah.
And he didn't even realize they didn't like it because it was later when he heard.
Yeah. He was clueless, the fact that his mom and dad were not happy with those 2 ladies.
He went around.
So he's just throwing it up to them.
So he's rejecting their life, their lifestyle, their teaching, their faith, their religion. Everything he is rejecting. So he didn't consult his family, he found them on his own. He spread that root of bitterness through the whole family. And while Esau was out running around, Jacob was, as it says in 25, he was the quiet man, or the blameless one, really, who stayed at home at the tents.
So he had to know the Torah to be blameless.
Yeah, he would have had to have learned Torah. But
Under
when
his grandfather.
in our culture, when we read he was the quiet man who stayed among the tents, we read that as, what was mentioned earlier, he's just a mama's boy.
Yeah.
He's just he's a scaredy cat. He won't go out on his own. He won't be a man and go out hunting game and stuff like that.
There we go, projecting our modern values on something
Yes.
that happened thousands.
But is that the case
No.
for Jacob? Is he a wimp or a weak guy?
But they want us to think that in the translation.
They want us to think that. Yes, Gabriel.
And, think of it in reverse. If the eldest son would have stayed at the tents, we would be proud. Look, he's taking up the business of his father. He's inheriting the business. But because it's the second son and it's Jacob, it's
Yeah.
clearly, not
Yes.
what he's doing at all.
I was just going to tell you that in Hebrews 12, and that is verse 15. This is, of course, teaching. A Messianic Jew,
Mhm.
someone, maybe Paul, is teaching. And what he says in verse 15, make sure that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no root of bitterness springs up, causing trouble and defiling many. And make sure there isn't any immoral or irreverent person like Esau who sold his birthright in exchange for a single meal. And what that is doing is saying that flesh can come into the church, and a spirit like of Jezebel that hates God
Mhm.
can cause people to adopt strange mixtures.
Well,
That's really the life of Esau,
yes.
so that you can worship God and worship money, or worship God and worship human achievement. Esau was like all about that.
Well, the way we tell this story, especially at the beginning, we make Esau the victim. We take his word for it. It's almost as if we're elevating Esau and his way of life, as that's the kind of life that we should aspire to.
Well, yeah, he's the super.
And Jacob, he's the deceiver, he's the trickster, he's the supplanter. We would never want to be like him.
And then when you come to that part where it says, and God hated Esau, you're like,
Yeah, how does that work? How does he hate Esau?
God was so not fair.
Yeah.
He was deceived.
Poor Esau. It was just so unfair for him.
But that's exactly what our culture thinks of God. God's not fair.
God, yeah. So, but here's the thing. While Esau was out running around, Jacob was home learning how the family worked, learning how the herds should be run. Okay, does that help him at all?
Yes.
Later. Who's he learning from?
Abraham.
For at least 15 years or so, he's learning from Abraham how to do all that stuff. And so when he shows up at Laban's house, that's why he can be there for 5 minutes, look around and say, you guys are messing it up. They shouldn't be here. They should be still out there feeding. And everything he does is superior to everything Laban and his men do. Now, and they're not that far apart as far as knowledge and tradition, because wasn't Abraham up there with that family before he came all the way down?
Yeah.
So Abraham would have learned most of the same stuff they had, but since he's been down here and he's learned and grown from God, he has gained a whole much greater amount of knowledge about leading the flocks and herds, that when Jacob goes back, we're not talking a couple generations later, that Jacob has a vast much more amount of knowledge than they do.
Doesn't help that Laban's, doesn't
Laban's
really
a lot
care.
like Esau.
Yeah, Laban doesn't really
Oh,
care.
yeah.
See, Laban in this story is really a continuation of Esau's spirit. Yes?
Well, also learning from Abraham, obviously, he was learning Torah, the teachings, and the history of the family, the history of the covenantal relationship with the God of heaven,
Mhm.
and who he is, all of that. He was learning all of that, while Esau was not. And as you mentioned earlier, Esau wanted all the goodies, but none of the responsibility.
Right.
He just wanted to get the...
Terry, did you have something you were wanting to share? I thought you were raising your hand. Okay. So here's back on the promise back in chapter 25. 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from your body will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other people, but the older will serve the younger. Okay, that's what's spoken. Who is it spoken to? It's spoken to Rebecca. And the way I always read this growing up was that the one people will be stronger than the other people. The way I always taught, and the way we always read the story, well, that means who? Who's the stronger people? I always read that as that's talking about Esau. That he is the stronger one. And then it says, but, even this translation, the TLB, has the but there. The older will serve the younger. It implies that these guys are the strong ones, but these guys are going to be the serving, or the ones ruling over. And in reality, it's more of an and than a but. It's one people will be stronger than the other. What's the definition? How does the Lord define what is strength?
His people.
Well, yeah, His people, but what about them? How does He define what is strength?
Spiritually.
Strength is meekness,
Is meekness, humility,
humility,
wisdom, perseverance, strength of faith, of character, of morals. Which one of these people is morally superior to the other? As far as their walk with the Lord and the walk in His instruction and the walk in His ways, that's Jacob. That's all of his descendants. Okay? Because one thing we'll learn about, it's not in this week's Torah portion, is Jacob, is he not strong? Because what happens when he shows up at the well, and all those other shepherds are lying around saying, well, we're waiting for the end of the day so we can, get together and open up the well and water the sheep.
He just takes them.
What does he do?
Moves them up.
He doesn't wait for them. He says, you guys are pathetic. You guys are lazy. He understands all that in a hurry. And so they're saying, oh, we can't move that rock until everybody gets here. Then we'll all have to work together and do it. And he's like, eh. And he does it by himself. Okay? Is he a physically imposing or strong person?
Yes.
I think he's
Yes.
in his 70s when he does that.
And he's in his 70s when he does that. All right? He is not a slouch or a mama's boy or anything else like that. He's stout.
And he couldn't use his brains and his leverage.
And he could have used that. He could have, yeah. I tell the story in a certain way because I've written about a third or a half of a book, a narrative on all this. And of course the shepherds are all kind of waiting for Rachel and Leah to show up, particularly Rachel. And so I tell the story that they've got it rigged that it won't open until they get there. They've got it fixed to where they have to come and help her do it. Like if you've got a big boulder or a stone, all you have to do is put one little pebble right at the crease of it, and they won't be able to move it at all. But if you don't know it's there, you can't move that thing. And so if somebody comes along and just kind of says, move that thing right out of the way, and like, yeah, I got that. They're putting on a show, kind of a thing. That's at least how I tell the story, and such as that. But so he is smart, he is intelligent, he is strong, and he would have had all of those things to even survive a childhood with somebody like Esau.
Can I throw a monkey wrench in here?
Okay.
He arrived with nothing but a staff. Do you
Right.
think that Isaac would have sent him to find a wife with nothing? It's very possible, and I've read this in some other literature, the Hebrew literature, and it's their tradition or whatever, that as he left, that Esau sent one of his sons after him to kill him. And Jacob bribed the young man by giving him what he had. And the young man went, yeah, I got all his stuff. I got his camels. I got all his loot. And spared his life. So by the time he got to Laban, he had nothing. And it's very plausible because when you think, because look what Abraham sent with Eleazar when he sent him to get
And it's not like Isaac's gotten any poorer.
Right.
No, he had.
But my only problem with that is the more that he would have supplied him for the journey, the more likely that Esau would have attacked.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
But he said his son.
but directly. Before he even left.
He probably left when when Esau was out in the field.
Probably. But
That's why he
he's
sent
close
his son.
enough to where his mother thinks that he's still a very viable threat. And he's like, you have to leave and you have to leave now.
Well, every time he comes back, I'm sure he's ranting.
Because she still heard him. She heard him say that. He bore this grudge against him.
Check it out.
And he said that he said in his heart, "Let the time for mourning for my father draw near, so I can kill my brother Jacob." Now to Rebekah, it was reported the words of Esau, her elder son. So he's still in the vicinity. And if I just think they're trying to get him out of there pretty quick.
Yeah, I know, but they wouldn't have sent him
But
nothing, I'm sure.
and anyway, that's not really where I'm going with things today. But one people will be stronger, and the way we tell the story, I've always assumed that was talking about Esau, but it's really talking about Jacob. And the older will serve the younger. So she is told who is the one who the promise is going through. Jacob was favored by his mother because she knew the promise. She also got to see their character. Esau was favored by Isaac. By seeking to bless Esau, Isaac was effectively putting him in charge of the family and the future.
Dangerous.
And that's what, yes.
I have a question, I have a doubt. When Esau sold the birthright to Jacob, that was before that when happened the event with the father and blessed Jacob?
Yes.
Jacob had all the right to go to get the
But
blessing.
either, maybe Isaac just didn't want to believe.
The firstborn is considered having a double portion of the inheritance. The blessing is seen as something distinct or separate. The inheritance or the birthright is more of the stuff. The blessing is more of the sense of that passing on of the mantle and the leadership and things like that. So there's an element of distinction between those things that we don't fully keep track of in our culture because we don't have that kind
Because
of stuff.
I never was thinking in that situation, but if Esau sold the birthright, what he expected.
What's his claim?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very true. Why would he want the blessing but not
Exactly.
the
He
inheritance?
sold it.
You know, in the birthright. Why would he want the blessing without the birthright?
Because he was a bully.
Because he's
Thought
not
he
the
could get away.
sharpest tack. He's not thinking
Well,
in the same way.
And not just that, but if he gets the blessing and Isaac dies and he's the bully, well, he can just take
He'll just take it back. He'll just take it back. Yeah.
The stuff is, he
So-
can take that anytime he
Well, the
wants to.
stuff also represents responsibility, which is the last
Which is
thing
what
that he
doesn't
wants.
want. Yeah.
And if he gets the blessing, then he's promised good things anyway, so he can have all the stuff without any responsibility.
Yeah. So, but Isaac would be putting him in charge. And Esau would be a disaster. Because he is bitter, he's immoral, he has a violent temper. He would be, you see this happen in companies all the time where you have a man who founds a multi-billion-dollar company, builds it up, he has a few kids, and he leaves it to one of the children that is completely incapable of running it. And everybody knows it but dad. Right? And of course, what happens to that company? It's in the trash. Okay? So that's what would happen if Esau were to receive this blessing to be put in charge of the family. He would be a disaster because he doesn't know the business. He doesn't know how to run the family. He doesn't know the herds. He doesn't know the faith. And Rebecca knows it because she heard the promise. And people have probably been trying to talk to Isaac all over the years and tell him what kind of person Esau was, but Esau was able to hide it from him. But Rebecca knows this and wants to protect her husband from making probably one of the worst mistakes he could ever make. And that's her role as the Ezer Neged, the helpmate, as his wife. It's the helper, the one who is the aid, the help, the counterpart, which is translated like helpmate, lifesaver, sustainer, a life ally, and elsewhere that's only said of God.
Excuse me, but wouldn't you think Rebecca would have been talking to Isaac about the promise? I mean, they were husband and wife, would discuss what God told her?
I believe
Because
that-
Isaac did have a lot of faith in God,
Mm-hmm.
and just like his father Abraham, so wouldn't you
You
think that
would
they
think that they've talked about
talked
it.
about it?
But he was blinded.
Now maybe she told him when they were young, and he's maybe forgotten, or with the spiritual blindness that he's at this state. It's not just a physical blindness; it's a spiritual. And also, if people are coming and trying to tell him all the time of things that his son is like and what he's doing, you know, what happens when you hear the same kind of story? Are you going to talk to me about that again? I don't want to hear about Esau. Right? It becomes difficult to have a conversation.
I don't want to hear about your issues.
I don't want to hear about your issues. Yeah, it's not his issues, it's your issues. Right? So he would have had, there are ways that a husband can tune out his wife.
Don't you dare.
I'm not admitting to anything.
Don't you dare.
But have you seen it happen before?
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's the point where wives have to step in with desperate measures.
Yeah. Yes, Maquette.
If you go back and read it, the prayer that she asked was, why was this going on in her womb? Now, later, she could have deducted and figured it out, but he didn't specifically tell, you know what I mean?
Well, what she knew is that the older is going to serve the younger. She didn't know how that's going to work out or anything necessarily, but she knew from that the one of promise, of favor, is going to be the second.
We get in trouble when we're trying to help God do His plan.
So yeah, but the Ezer Neged, one of the purposes, and you brought this up last night, is one who helps her husband fulfill his calling and purpose. Because in him fulfilling his calling and purpose, then she's fulfilling her calling and purpose, and the whole family experiences the blessing of God. Right? Yes.
And in a way, this is very different than Sarah trying to give Hagar, because Sarah was of the position that she could not be this helpmate lifesaver and help him fulfill his calling because she was barren and she was too old. She was trying to provide a way for herself to be that, just through another person.
Mm-hmm.
But here, Rebecca is like, this is the only way I can fulfill my role, is to step up and do this.
So
This is actually more of a comparison to Sarah when she tells Abraham to put
Yes.
Hagar and Ishmael away.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is much
But
more
she
that.
knows Isaac is about to stray from the calling, the prophecy that was made, and Rebecca is interceding on his behalf. When Rebecca was listening, that's interesting in 27. She's there and she hears all of this conversation with Isaac and Esau. Rebecca was listening when Isaac went to the field to hunt game. Rebecca was listening when Isaac was speaking to Esau his son. So while Esau went to the field to hunt game to bring him in, Rebekah said to Jacob, her son, "Look, I heard your father speaking to your brother Esau." Okay? She hears all of that. And she hears that her husband's going to make the biggest mistake. So who had the idea to send Jacob in Esau's place? If you know the story. She does.
Rebecca.
And how could she justify this? Well, she can go back to the promise. She can go back to knowing that Esau would be a disaster. Think about it like this. She thinks she's helping Isaac. Okay? She thinks she's protecting the family and the future. And that comes back over to chapter 27, verse 46, where she says, Rebekah said to Isaac, "I'm disgusted with my life because of the daughters of Heth." Those are Esau's wives. "If Jacob takes a wife from the daughters of Heth, like these women from the daughters of the land, what is life to me?" In other words, when she was brought into the family, she went into Sarah's tent, became the matriarch of the family, and carried on that legacy of faith. Who's she going to give it to? One of his wives? That ain't going to happen. They are not in a position to even be considered to be the matriarch of the family, carrying on the legacy of faith.
Well, it seems like when Isaac was trying to decide whether to obey his mother or not.
You mean Jacob?
Jacob, yes. She said, "Let it be
Well-
on me."
We'll get there. We'll get there. Yes.
There's a Jewish wisdom book I read on marriages, and it says, and it's just as plain, it makes perfect sense. The person on earth that God, like it says that Isaac was blind, and God, the person that's the closest to you on earth is your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
So if God can't get through to you, try to get through to your spouse to get through to you. And that seems like common sense, but we don't think of that.
Sure. Yeah, so yeah, she is protecting the family. That's how she's looking at it. And she is helping to fulfill the promise. She's that part of that agency of helping fulfill the promise that the older is going to serve the younger. We were talking about it a bit last night. We think of her as this is a deceitful kind of an event, a moment. But how do you, if you're in Germany in World War II and you've got a family of Jewish people down in your basement and the SS shows up at your door, what are you going to say?
No, nobody's here.
Nobody's home. No, we're not hiding anybody. Are you right in doing so? Yes, you are.
Because you're protecting them.
Your life. You are protecting what's really going on and the important things. Yeah. And so there are instances when we know that you are justified in doing something that you wouldn't normally. She wouldn't do this for any and every reason, would she?
No.
If she did this all the time, would she be
She would be a good wife.
deceptive? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but if you see your husband doing something that is just flat out wrong
Detrimental.
and detrimental and going to hurt him, hurt you, hurt everybody, and you do nothing to stop him,
Not good.
then that's like being an accomplice to something.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
If she knows,
Ananias and Sapphira, hello?
yeah, Ananias and Sapphira would be a great example.
That's right.
But you have to find a wise way.
But there has to be a wise way to take care of things. Absolutely.
Well, this was a promise.
She didn't have much time.
Rebecca before they were born.
Yeah.
It goes all the way back to the promise to Abraham too, because he believed God. He was counted righteous because of it. And
Believe God.
and so this is what's happening.
You're not gonna get through.
Yes, I am.
We're gonna die.
But how comfortable was Jacob with all this?
Not at all.
He's not. Okay, and that, again, what does that say to his character?
That's a good time.
Okay, he says, Rebecca, here's all this. She says, look, go and bring some food, bring it back, I'll make it, you go in and pretend to be Esau. And Jacob comes back and says, do I have that here? Yeah. Look, my brother Esau's a hairy man, but I'm a smooth man. Mom, this is not going to work. This is crazy. This is going to be over in like a minute and a half. Perhaps my father will touch me and he'll take me for a mocker, and I'll bring upon myself a curse and not a blessing. All right, so he doesn't want his father to think bad of him, because how is he described? He is Tom. He is blameless. He doesn't want to go in and do this kind of stuff because it's going to end badly. And so she calls out, and like you said, she comes back and she says, let your curse fall on me, my son. I will bear this responsibility.
And he'll be blameless.
And you'll continue to be blameless. Just listen to me and go get them for me.
Yeah, but they obeyed their parents back then.
Well, but he's 70 years old.
I know, but they were
Esau
rebellious, like
Esau
Esau was rebellious, but I
So,
mean, generally that wasn't.
Rebecca had the idea. Rebecca cooks the meal. Rebecca found the disguise. Jacob didn't like the idea, but we still lay it all on him.
Women were just so depowered back then. I'm telling you, just they had no
Yeah.
power whatsoever.
Rebecca also trusted Isaac's love for her.
Yes, he did. He
She had
trusted.
to have.
Yeah. So, because if he truly loved her, is he going to curse her and let that curse fall on her? No.
That's higher up in the commandments. Honor his mother.
Jacob spoke the words, I am your firstborn Esau.
Jacob is suspicious.
And Isaac is suspicious the whole time, all right? When he goes in there, he came to his father and he said, my father. And he said, I'm here. Who are you, my son? And Jacob said to his father, I'm your firstborn Esau. I've done just what you said to me. Sit up, please, and eat some of my wild game so that your soul may bless me. Now, remember, he's not comfortable doing this at all. Then Isaac said to him, how in the world were you able to find it so quickly? Do I have that?
Yes, you did.
You just
You
passed
just
it.
passed.
I passed it? Okay. How in the world were you able to find it so quickly, my son? Is he suspicious?
Yeah.
He's like, well, that was quick.
Yeah.
You just left. And then Isaac said to Jacob, please come closer so I can feel you, my son, whether or not you really are my son Jacob. All right. He might not be able to see, but he's like, something's fishy. Something's fishy here. So Jacob came closer to his father Isaac. He felt him, then he said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are Esau's hands. And so he's like, something's not right. I hear my son Jacob, but I feel my son Esau. He did not recognize him because his hands were like the hairy hands of his brother Esau. That must be some hairy hands. So he blessed him, but he said in verse 24, are you really my son Esau? And so he said, I am. The whole time, Isaac is not buying it. There's part of him that's like, something's not right. Then you get to see Jacob and Esau revealed in verse 30. It says, no sooner had Isaac finished blessing, and I'm not going to get into the blessing so much, and Jacob had just gone out from his father's presence that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. Then he also prepared a delicious meal and brought it to his father, and he said to his father, let my father get up and eat his son's wild game, that your soul may bless me. His father Isaac said, who are you? He said, I'm your son, your firstborn Esau. And then Isaac trembled with intense trembling and said, well, who was it then that hunted wild game and brought it to me? I ate it all just before you came, and I blessed him, and yes, he will be blessed. Do I have this? It says, then Esau heard his father's words. He shouted with an intensely bitter groan, or he cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry. Then he said to his father, bless me too, my father. All right? Exceedingly, that word there means a might or force or great vehemence. Now, what kind of emotion do those kind of words kind of convey?
Rage.
It's a rage.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a gadol, it's great, it's a bitter mar, an angry, chafed, or discontented. It's so strong of a reaction and an emotion that he's like, okay, I'm going to kill him. And he means it. All right? He means it. He is going to kill him.
Who knows how many people he's killed before.
And there's no telling how many people he's killed before already. So this is not going to make him hesitate. But in that moment, that exceedingly great and bitter cry, it's like the veil. He drops the veil for just a moment. He drops the charade in front of Daddy for just a moment. And Isaac finally gets to see Esau's true character. And so when Esau says in verse 36, haven't you saved a blessing for me? What's the reply? No. Now, notice that Esau was willing to receive that. Look at verse 36. He says, my brother, he's now tricked me twice. He's taken my birthright. Look, now he has taken my blessing. Haven't you saved a blessing for me? And Isaac answered and said to Esau, behold, I have made him a master over you and all of your brothers. I have given him to him as servants. I have provided him with grain and new wine. What then can I do for you, my son? He gave him everything, right? But notice Esau wanted all of that. He was content to receive all of that and leave nothing for Jacob. But Isaac's reply is essentially no. I don't have anything to extend to you. But is that true?
Go back.
Go back to what?
Go back to what Isaac says. Are you going to hit that?
I wasn't, because
Isaac
that was
says
getting...
about your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing. That word, deceitfully, the root word of that actually means to hurl or to shoot. He's hurled this away from you. He's hurled it and
Your
took-
brother came and
He's gotten
has,
away from
is
you as far
keeping
as
the
he can
blessing, keeping it away from you, is
That
thing,
right
because,
there was the-
again, how was it with his hand in holding off his heel? He is restraining him and keeping him from doing what he wants to do. It's like, oh man, I just had something. Okay, think about it like this. If you know somebody is so angry that they want to go kill somebody, and they think, where's my gun? I'm going to go get it. And you know where it's at, and they can't quite remember, but you know where it is.
You're not gonna-
What will you go do? You'll move it and hide it where they can't get it. Okay? It's that kind of situation. He knows that he wants it because he wants to do something nefarious and bad with it. And so he's keeping it away from him.
But Jacob didn't go in there because he wanted the blessing. Jacob wasn't sitting there because Rebecca wanted him to have the blessing.
Yeah.
This was
A lot about keeping it away from Esau, even more than giving it to Jacob.
Yeah.
Well, the final blessing wasn't anything he would have wanted anyway.
Well, and that's it. When Isaac said, no, I've got nothing left to bless you with, that's not entirely true. Because Isaac had withheld the most important part of the blessing because of his suspicions.
It's not reasonable.
Okay? He refused at this point to give it to Esau.
I think he saw the truth.
Because he got to see all those stories that he probably heard about Esau and didn't really believe them. He got to believe them in an instant. He got to see that violence, that anger, that bitterness, all in that moment where he lets out that cry in front of him. And now he's not going to give it to him. Because he left out the best and the most important part. He didn't give it to Jacob initially. But
He did later.
in 28, when they're sending him off, he gives it to him with full knowledge of who he is giving it to. And he says, now may El Shaddai bless you, make you fruitful, and multiply so that you will become an assembly of peoples. He didn't say that before. He could have said that to Esau and didn't. And may he give you the blessing of Abraham. Could he have said that to Esau? Yeah, he could have. But Esau didn't really want that. But he could have given it. To take you and your seed with you, that you may take possession of the land of your sojourn. Would he have wanted that? Esau would have wanted that. Esau would have wanted to take possession of the land. Because he does that. He does that elsewhere. He takes everybody's land that he can get.
But I thought he liked traveling around.
But
He still took land, and he still built up fortified cities in Edom and all those other places. He does all that.
He killed the king of Seir.
He kills
It took all
to
of
take
his-
all of that.
Yeah.
So,
And he's clearly ruthless enough to establish his own dynasty in an area that had not had a dynasty before.
and he has, and when Jacob comes back 20 years later, he's got 400 fighting men with him.
Yep.
I
That's just
mean,
to go see Jacob.
that's a stout campaign
Yep.
of people that he can call up whenever he wants.
400.
So he is a powerful fighting force in that area.
I mean that's like and that's just to go out to see his brother. Abraham got less than that when he went out to fight a war
against 5 kings.
Against five
Against
kings.
5 kings, that's right, yes.
And so
And he won.
he won. I mean, you could argue that more Hittites came with Mamre and his friends,
Yes.
but still, that's not his men.
So, later, with full knowledge, Isaac gives the most powerful and most important blessing to Jacob.
He knew Jacob would love him.
Yeah. Because Jacob, he got to see the character of things. His eyes, he was blind before, but his eyes were opened to what's really going on. Yeah. And that's, so there, and this is important too. There's no record of any rebuke for Jacob from Isaac. There's no record of any rebuke for Rebekah from Isaac. And there's no record of any rebuke for either Jacob or Rebekah from God.
Yep. He blessed him along the way.
Yeah. If Jacob was so in the wrong, why would God honor all of this?
Yep.
He wouldn't.
Yeah. So anyway.